I'll call to order a meeting of the San Luis Obispo County Flood Control and Water Conservation District, the Water Resources Advisory Committee, WRAC, for Wednesday, November 7th, 2018. I'm Andy Pease, and I'm the chair. And we'll go ahead and start with establishing quorum. If you're a voting member of WRAC, could you please raise your hand?
Yes.
All right, 17, we have quorum. Thank you so much. And thanks all for being here. We'll go ahead and do introductions. If you could say your name and who you are representing, that would be awesome. All right.
I'm Linda Seifert, and I represent District 3, and I'm the vice chair.
I'm Gina Herbst. I'm the GIS mapping analyst for environmental health.
I'm Leslie Terry. I'm one of the supervising environmental health specialists with Environmental Health Services.
Sue Luck, environmental at large.
Jim Gary, District 4 rep.
Courtney Upton, Sansonine Community Services District.
Bob Gressens with the Cambria CSD.
Steph Hall, Central Coast Salmon Enhancement, and I am environmental at large alternate.
Jim Walters, development at large.
George Kendall, Farm Bureau.
James Green, Farm Bureau alternate.
Dennis Laux, District 1 rep.
Greg Graywall, District 5 rep.
Debbie Peterson, City of Rubber Beach.
Michael Borman, City of San Francisco.
Charles Barbeau, City of Tascadero.
Cynthia Repogo with Oceana CSD. If I could just ask quickly when we get the list updated to reflect the new primary.
Oh yeah, I apologize for that. We'll get it updated. So.
Wes Thompson, County Public Works. Rob Morrow, Woodard and Kern.
Wendy Clark, County Public Works.
Alexander, County Public Works. Marsh Guthrie, City of Pismo Beach. Shirley Gibson, alternate for Oceana Community Solutions. Linda King, County Antiquary.
South Bay Wolf, Chair of the Regional Water Quality Control Board.
Bill Garfinkel, 2nd District. Evie, Napomo CSD.
Craig Armstrong, Napomo CSD. Jordan Listrom, Dillsbury Water.
Syracuse, County Works.
John Lee, Camp San Luis Obispo.
I'm Hillary Graves. I'm the Vice President of the Estrella El Pomar Creston Water District. We're not allowed to be members, but I'm here anyways. So.
I'm Willie Cunha with the Shannon San Juan GSA.
Christine Mulholland, environmental at large alternate.
Eric Greening, environmental at large.
David Chillick, environment at large.
Linda Chipping, Coastal San Luis RCD.
Charlie Cody, S&T Mutual Water Company, Associates.
And Ray Dienzo, County Public Works.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, everyone. We need a follow-up item on our Creston Okamar. Don't you? I don't know where to put that on the agenda. All right. Terrific. So let's see, a couple agenda items here. Unfortunately, Jason Yeager had a family emergency and so isn't going to be able to attend and do item 6 today, so that'll be postponed for another meeting. And then on the ongoing updates, we're going to start with G for environmental health, the website information, and then
we can go ahead and do.
Oh, I forgot the meeting minutes. Yeah. So we'll start with that when we get to ongoing updates, but we will do the meeting minutes first. Any comments, corrections, concerns on the meeting minutes?
Thank you.
Eric.
Yes, just one word. On the second page of the minutes, third little paragraph there, second paragraph. Member E. Greening mentions the potential impacts on water by the expansion of accessory units. The word "for" should be "and" farm worker housing. These were two distinct policies the board was working on.
Great, thank you.
And if no one else has any corrections, I will move approval of these almost perfect and now perfect minutes.
As amended. Is there a second to the minutes?
I'll second.
Tim, for a second, thank you. And we'll go ahead and do a voice roll call, so that helps us to secure attendance.
Dennis Laux,
Yes.
Bill Carnegie, Neil McDoodle. So Bill Garfinkel's not here. Is Neil?
Bill's in there.
Oh, Bill, you're back there. Sorry, Bill Garfinkel. Do you approve the minutes?
We're calling for the minutes. Yes or no? Yes.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
Linda Seifert,
Yes.
Jim Gehring,
Yes.
Greg Graywall.
Yes.
Okay, Kurt Bollinger or Patrick Williams. Okay, Jason. Okay. Tim Walters,
Yep.
Sue Luft,
Yes.
Eric Greening,
Yes.
David Chipping,
Yes.
Linda Chipping,
Yes.
Michael Broadhurst or Tom Mora. Okay. John Reed,
Yes.
George Kendall,
Yes.
Anthony Lindstrom, Kevin Peck. Is he here? All right. Barbara Harmon, Charles Bourbeau,
Yes.
Debbie Peterson,
Yes.
all right. Kirk Gonzalez, or Chris Alaco, okay. Marcia Guthrie,
Yes.
Andy Peace,
Yes.
Bob Gressens.
I'm going to abstain because I wasn't there.
Oh, okay. Is Scott Duffield here? Or, Craig Armstrong,
Yes.
Cynthia Raplogle,
Yes.
all right. And Tina Myers not here. All right, motion carries.
Great. Thanks, everyone. All right, so now to the ongoing updates, starting with skipping around here for item G. Appreciate Gina Herbst from Environmental Health. Go ahead and present the item.
Okay, so we currently have 4 public-facing map viewers to serve environmental health information. And I will start with Eat Safe Slow. And this shows actively permitted restaurant locations, and then they have links to live inspection reports. So you can see the latest inspection reports if you dare. It depends. I'm sorry?
Bring the window into the other screen.
Oh, okay.
Drag it into the other screen.
Let's see. Also like here.
Drag it right into the other screen.
Ah.
Tricky.
I know, I can't get the mouse. Oh, here we go. Okay, here like this.
Drag, yeah, there you go.
Oh, hello.
Eat
There
safe.
we go.
I'm sure.
Okay. Once we get it there, it should be good, right? It's kind of stretched out. Okay, so we'll let that. It's kind of stretched out funny, but. So this is Eat Safe Slow, and you can search. You can just zoom in to an area that you know, or you can actually just put in a restaurant. Put in Starbucks.
It's having a hard time.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, here we go. So we have 16 in our county. So it'll highlight all of them, and then you can select one. You can see this one in Los Osos is thumbs up. It's good to go. So that's Eat Safe Slow. We also highlight the Award of Excellence restaurants that have excellent scores, and they are symbolized by stars. And next, just gonna move right along.
May I ask,
Oh, sure.
when you say inspection reports, do you use the ABC?
No, we are not a grading county, and that's something that we've heavily debated over the years, because a lot of people feel really great when you're, down in Orange County or someplace and you go into a food facility and it's an A, that's great. But what winds up actually happening is an inspector goes in to a facility and maybe they wind up a C, right? And so then the owner gets called, because the owner is like, all right, everybody clean this place up. And then they call and they pay for a re-inspection. So when the re-inspection happens, it's magically an A, right? So, and they hang the A proudly out for all to see. And so our prior director and our current director is sticking to, we want people to not look at the window and see that A, because that represents one day, and it's a huge percentage of time it's a re-inspection A, it's not the initial inspection, the surprise inspection. Food facilities, okay, to back up a little bit, food facilities are unannounced inspections. So we just show up and it's like, hey, the health inspector's here, which is great or not, depending on the facility. We want people to be able to see what that facility looked like, and we want people to see over the years what it looked like. So you can see some history and you can see what the violation comments were. So you can see that In-N-Out, which is generally a really great franchise, they have some structural issues. There's some broken tiles underneath the fryers. If you've never been in a commercial kitchen, typically you have ceramic tiles. That's an issue for us because, number one, it's a safety hazard, and number two, it's very hard to clean broken tiles. You get oils and grease, and then the roaches come because they want to eat the oils and the grease. So it is a cleanliness issue. It's not a heavy hitter. So you can see that the points deducted, it's half a point. It's not a heavy hitter for us. The heavy hitters for us, of course, are foods out of temp is a really big deal. People not washing their hands is a really big deal. You're going to see huge point deductions for that. Or anything that may come into contact or be associated with maintaining cleanliness or temperature controls.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Sorry, so let's just, I want to make sure that we allow enough time and that we're sticking with what's super relevant to WRAC overall. So,
But this is super interesting. I could talk all day.
Yes, exactly.
My contact information is on the website. I am not the food program lead. I am more on the water side, but you are welcome to grab me at any point outside the meeting. And
so within that context, Eric, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah.
Did you have something that was specific for?
A lot of the
WRAC
stars
relevance?
are out at wineries rather than at restaurants, and so I was just asking, do you inspect places that are not formally restaurants and don't formally charge for food but serve food?
yes, these facilities are representative of anybody holding a health permit. And so wineries, if you're pouring your own wines and that's it, you get an exemption from a health permit through business and profession code. Also, breweries, if you're brewing your own beer and you're only pouring your beer, you don't need a health permit. The minute you add palate cleansers above and beyond pretzels, so even little cubes of bread, cheese, chocolates, if you have a little case and you're buying sandwiches from a deli so that somebody can come, buy a bottle of wine, grab a couple sandwiches and go sit on the tree, those are food products. And yes, that's the same. Like we inspect Staples, for example, because they have so many break room snacks that they're over the threshold. Anything over 25 square feet basically triggers a health permit.
Thank you.
All right, so keep going.
Do you inspect grease traps?
We don't inspect grease traps because they're part of, and when that whole fog, fast oil and grease thing went down, it's really kind of wishy-washy. We see grease traps. Usually we refer people to the agency performing the plan check. We like the grease traps away from hot water, because otherwise you just liquefy the grease and send it down the pipe. So we love grease traps to be outside a building. Some jurisdictions really want them inside the building. We don't really understand why or what. So no, we don't inspect them, but if we smell them or they're an issue, we may couldn't take them out.
All right, let's
Okay.
keep
All right,
moving
moving
on.
on.
Thank
So
you.
just real quick, so if you just type in Eat Safe Slow, one word, .org, that'll take us to our main restaurant page, and you can launch this, and it's mobile friendly, and when you're on your mobile device, you can geolocate to your location, it'll show the restaurants around you. Okay. So, next, beach water quality. So, same kind of format. So these are all the beaches that we inspect every week. It's having a hard time loading for some reason. They're all green, meaning they're all open. If there is an advisory, a beach advisory, then the symbol will turn orange. Individual sites will turn orange. If it's closed, it'll turn red. And if there's a substantial amount of rain, then they will all become clouds and be a rain advisory. You can click on any one of these sites, and we have some great links here to air quality, current rainfall levels, this and that, and also the last 30 days of water sample results, so very detailed bacteriological information there. We also have for every site historical information. You can see for the last 3 to 4 years if a site has been closed or not and why. So that is Surf Safe Slow, and again you can type in surfsafeslow.org and that'll take you to our main webpage. Okay, and next is Driller View, and this is an application built to assist well drillers that are contracted within our county. And this allows them to like prepare for a well site. So you can punch in an APN or an address or GPS coordinates to get where you'd like to go, or you can just zoom in on your own. So just for instance, so it has smart labeling, so wherever you are on the map, it's going to let you know if you're within a water purveyor, it'll tell you which one. And if you are within a sub-area of the Paso Robles groundwater basin, it'll tell you what sub-area you're within and what the drilling threshold is for that sub-area. So really useful. And then we have some great tools where you can go in and you can measure an area, and it'll give you all the dimensions, and just kind of making an example of what a well driller would do. So we got coordinates on a proposed well site and dimensions, and this information can be printed on our county template, and this will become part of the well permitting packet. Okay, so we have a nice site map produced by the well driller. Before, they're hand drawn and kind of unstandardized. So that's Driller View. There's also other useful layers, water-related layers. You can see there's the coastal zone, Paso Robles groundwater basin. It has all of the DWR Bulletin 118 basins. And there's a topo map that assists the well drillers to help them get their equipment to the site if it's crazy terrain. So that's Driller View, and that is available through our well permitting.
Sorry. Does it also show existing wells?
It does not. It does not.
The state website, they're mapping wells and having them publicly available. We've gone through a big data cleanup. We have some internal tools. We can run some querying, but it's not publicly available at this time. But we have gone through over the last year or two a huge data cleanup. We have records going back to the 60s. We go back before the 60s. So
64 is
64 was kind of the starting of our well records, and they were initially organized by property owner name and then section township range, and then so we tried to standardize and clean them all up. And so we've done that, and they're all in a database, and our database can then push to our internal mapping software, but that's kind of where it's at. So we can run a query, and then it will guide us into where to find records and other information.
Thank you.
And so lastly, mosquito surveillance view, and this shows all of our mosquito trapping sites around the county the last couple of years. And so I just wanted to zoom in to where we are so that you can kind of see. We have them all over the county, of course, and you just click on any of them and you can, there are no mosquitoes at this site. And if there were mosquitoes trapped, it'll report male or female and how many and what type.
So that's just May of 17.
Mm-hmm.
So
Of last year,
this
yeah.
year, we're just on our own. The mosquitoes could be getting us.
That's for that site. So
That's
maybe
right,
that
yeah.
wasn't a very effective site, so we don't always come back to the same trapping site every year.
Click down by the creek.
Oh yeah, Laguna Lake. It's, sure. Okay, yeah, these are a lot busier over here. You can see. So yeah, so feel free to, if you like. And we also have where dead birds have been found, and those dead birds being tested positive for West Nile. So we have those mapped here in our county, and you can click on that, and it'll say it was the Western Scrub Jay, and it has the report date and links to the West Nile virus website. Okay. Yeah. So those are our public-facing map viewers. And they're all on. There are links available from our environmental health webpage.
I know this is kind of stupid, but can you just kind of show us how to get to those?
Oh, sure, absolutely. No.
Start with Obispo.
Sure.
Yeah.
From the outside.
Yeah, right?
Sure. So let's see. So SLO County. So if you just go to the main SLO County website, within there you can type in well driller, environmental health, restaurant inspections, and that'll get you.
I think if you scroll down.
Yeah, and if you scroll down, let's see, where is it? We have.
There it is, well driller resources.
Yeah, well driller resources, and then we also have mapping GIS, and this will take you to a page that has a link for each one of our public-facing viewers and a description. Okay.
Any other questions for Gina?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Do you want me to close this, right?
Yes, please.
All right. Somebody hit those lights. You may know where the lights are. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Eric. All right. So we're going to, for item 4, since we have a guest speaker, we're going to start right at 2 o'clock because we invited some others, and I want to make sure that that's available. So in the meantime, under ongoing updates, rain and reservoir, groundwater, IRWM, stormwater resource plan, other programs, and water conservation opportunities. Does anybody have any comments from the agenda packet or other items? Yeah.
Actually, this doesn't directly relate to the calendar. On the UPC Water District, what happened at the board yesterday? Were they approved to join? Or?
We were not.
So let's.
Recommended that you guys be approved.
Pardon me?
Yeah.
You recommended that you guys be approved.
Yes, and Supervisor Arnold pulled the item from the consent agenda and requested that it be postponed until their meeting on November 20th because she would like to see what the outcome is of our meeting with LAFCO next Thursday.
All right. Thanks for that update. I had that down to kind of get that one. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the ongoing updates?
It was our recommendation that they be included, transmitted formally to them.
Correct. We took a vote last meeting
Right.
for the El Pomar Australia to become members of WRAC. That was our recommendation. So, and it sounds like the item was deferred until the next meeting pending. So keep us posted for next time on how that goes. Thank you. That clarification. All right.
The reason was is because the two supervisors that are on LAFCO have a vote to make because the EPC water district has not met all their requirements to stay a water district.
Well, actually, that's your opinion, but it's not that. So, you know, we can debate that in another forum, but
It's a simple deal.
We
You
have
have
met
to be
the
part of a
conditions.
GSA
So,
or
hey.
a GSA partner.
no, you're wrong.
Hey,
Actually,
Greg.
that's not what it says.
Thank you. That is not for this body to deliberate on, so happy to take open comments, but only when they're constructive for what this body needs to decide on. Thank you. Let's see. Should we go ahead and start?
Yeah,
I think that's,
yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and get rolling for our next presentation, which I'm super excited about. We have Arnie Anselm has come up from Ventura to talk to us about a program they have down there for the Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency. The program creates a formal water market for Ventura County farmers to buy and sell their excess water to help adapt to the water resources' increasingly strained availability. So he'll be able to talk to us about that water market program as well as the advanced metering infrastructure. And Arnie is the Deputy Director of Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency, as well as being the Deputy Director of Ventura County Water Resources Division. Did I cover that correctly?
Yeah.
All right, so Arnie, come on up and let's hear it.
Thanks. I'm the Deputy Director of Ventura County Watershed Protection District, which is a separate district from Ventura County, but we are under the umbrella of the Public Works Agency. So we have the exact same Board of Supervisors, but we're separate districts. And then County is staff to the Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency, which has an entirely different set of Board of Directors. So 3 hats there. Before I begin, I'm just curious in the crowd here, are there any growers here or well owners for agriculture? Okay. And I assume a lot of well owners who are in GSAs, groundwater sustainability agencies? Okay. You've probably already heard about some of what we're doing, but I'll cover it. Yes. Okay. Oh, it's moving down here. Moving down. I'm going to give you some background, where we get our water in Ventura County, why groundwater is so important to us, how we are managing groundwater in Ventura County, real briefly with the new SGMA requirements, and then dive into Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency and explain some of the actions we're taking, specifically the water market, which has been getting a lot of press, and the advanced metering infrastructure, which is necessary to have to support a water market. And those are meters that can, I'll go into more detail, but it can Wi-Fi or radio signal what the extractions are. So in Ventura County, 2/3 of our water is groundwater. We do have state water on the eastern side, Thousand Oaks and Simi Valley, but our groundwater supplies 85% of the water for agriculture, which is a significant industry in Ventura County, $2 billion a year, multiple rotations of crops, so high, very rich soil. So groundwater is very important to our economy there as well. M&I is municipal and industrial, so that's the city's residents. So Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency was formed in 1983 to stop seawater intrusion. The growers were pulling out water from the aquifer. Oxnard Plain is 6 feet above sea level, so it didn't take much to start pulling in the seawater with it. There's a a trench that comes right up to the shore, and there's an outcropping of the aquifer right there, so it's a real easy pathway for the salt water to get into the aquifer. That was their state agency, so it took state legislation to create that agency, obviously long before SGMA. A couple other basins that we have. One's adjudicated, Santa Paula Basin, fairly recently, and the Ojai Basin GMA up in Ojai. Not related to really what I'm going to be talking about, but just to give you an idea what the lay of the land and groundwater is in Ventura County. Whoops, too far. So, do I have a pointer on here? Do I have a pointer on here? That's okay. North half of the county, that big yellow blotch up there is a medium priority basin. That's Cuyama Basin. We actually share that with San Luis Obispo County, Santa Barbara County, and a little bit of Kern County. The majority of that basin is cut off, just to give you a sense of scale. That's enormous compared to what we have on the southern half of Ventura County. 7 medium priority basins, 4 high priority basins, and then 2 more that are on the draft list to become medium priority basins that DWR should be making a decision on very soon. Fox Canyon is the 3 orange basins that I'll zoom into here. Oxnard Basin, Pleasant Valley, actually 4, Las Posas Valley, and Arroyo Santa Rosa. As I mentioned, this is just high use agricultural land, but also the city of Oxnard depends on groundwater, the city of Camarillo depends on groundwater, Moore Park depends on groundwater. So there's a lot of interests here. 3 of them high priority, 2 of them significantly overdraft. That means our GSP, our plans for sustainability, are due January 2020. So it's on the fast track. I'll point out Cuyama is also on the fast track for 2020. We have a running start compared to some of the other agencies, GSAs, who have just formed. Obviously, we've been around since 1983. But the analogy has always been the state said you have to solve this problem, so they created the Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency, but it's been, I don't want to say, it's the growers and the municipal, let me try to say what I really want to say is they've allowed, they haven't taken real strong steps to solve those problems, so it hasn't really gotten better since 1983. Hence why we're in significant overdraft and subject to SGMA. The board for the Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency is a farmer representative. I don't need to read all these to you, but it's a broad range, and none of them are elected except for they might be elected to another seat and then appointed by that board or council. Big decision this Friday is going to be how are we going to allocate the available groundwater to all the users. It's the first reading of the new ordinance. And so wish us luck. And the reason I bring up allocations is because when we talk about the water market, a water market is essentially a cap and trade system. The allocations are the cap. What's next? So when we're talking about the allocations, we need to be clear we're not impacting water rights. Any overlying landowner still has right to that water. But because of the situation and the impact to all the other users, if they pump above their allocation, which they are allowed to do, it's going to cost them more due to surcharges, or what we call them at Fox Canyon. And allocations, it's really important for the growers to have year-to-year flexibility because so much of their water use is dependent on the weather. Not just if it rains, they don't need to pump, but if we have some strong Santa Ana winds and they're trying to bring the crop to market, they need to use a lot of water just to save what they've been spending the last 4 months growing. So this year-to-year flexibility, good for the growers. We're talking carryover. If they didn't use all their allocation 1 year, they can use that the next year. And they can build up a bank, but we have to be very sure that at some point during a drought year, there's not a run on the bank because that water is in the aquifer, but it's moving around. It's not really there. So if everybody built up a huge supply in their carryover, and then 1 year pulled it all out, it could literally collapse our aquifer. Borrowing is is borrow from next year's allocation. And there's a lot of concern with that people are just kicking the can down the road. They're not going to actually achieve sustainability. So a lot of restrictions we're looking on borrowing. This flexibility impacts the water market in the sense that it's not such a hard cap. They have other options than just the water market, which is fair. We're not trying to artificially support the water market. We are trying to create a situation where the water users of that groundwater basin have the ability to perform their businesses and be able to predict where they're going. What do we got here? So to give you an idea how much water has cost to pump out of Fox Canyon, it's $6 a year till Sigma, which is really cheap. $6.50 added on top of that due to the sustainability fee. That's to develop the groundwater sustainability plan. But if they overpump, if they go beyond their allocation, it's 100 times as much, and then it goes up from there. And I'll point out that $1,461, that is set at the price of imported water. That's what it costs to bring water through the state system. And they are discussing a replenishment fee of $100 to $400 an acre feet, and that's a significant amount of money in an area that pumps close to 100,000 acre feet a year. So we're talking 10 to 40 million a year. Those are all just rumors. We haven't voted. That's going to be a 218. We'll see where that lands. But some of the thought leaders in the area have floated those numbers. So our goals for having a water market is obviously to provide flexibility to the growers, but more so to incentivize conservation. If the water has more value than $6 an acre foot, then somebody will be more willing to invest in high efficiency irrigation practices, whatever they are for whatever they're growing. But also, it puts a price on water so we can understand the value of new sources of water and be able to develop those. And this is really key, this last point, improve the measurement of groundwater extractions. For the whole life of the GMA, they didn't have meters until the mid-90s. Well, I think a lot of the growers have meters for their own operations. They didn't have to report their extractions until the mid-90s. And it's all self-reported. Fill out a form twice a year, send it in with a $6 per acre foot charge. So for a cap and trade system, oops, where am I going? Let me skip that slide. Stay with it. For a cap and trade system, we need to really know exactly how much water they're pumping. So nobody can game the system, and also know how much water they have pumped. So when they sell water, they're selling water they actually have, that they haven't already pumped to their allocation and then are just putting water they don't have on the market. So here's an example. The trade is fairly straightforward. Both grower A and B have 100 acre feet. Grower A knows ahead of time he's not going to use his entire allocation. Sells, what do we have here, 20 acre feet to grower B. So we adjust the allocations. So grower A only has 80 acre feet, and if they pump over, they're into the surcharge rate. But grower B now can pump 120. Sorry, that chart came out a little goofy. So it's pretty straightforward. Some backroom calculations have to be made, and we have an exchange administrator to handle the payment and to do some of the trading, which this is pretty clever how they set it up. It's not eBay where something goes on the market and everybody bids and the highest bidder gets it. It's if you have water to sell, how important is it that you sell that water will help you set your price. If you really want to get rid of it or you want to make the profit off it, a lower price will sell faster. If you really need water because you have berries or something that you got to finish up, you're going to put a higher price on that water. So the highest desire to sell, the lowest price, is matched with the highest desire to buy, the highest price. And it's just a simple, whatever the median is there. So you're pretty much guaranteed not to pay what your highest price is to buy, and you're pretty much guaranteed to get more than what your price to sell is. So I mentioned we have a third-party exchange administrator. Some of this was just doing it in-house. We don't have the staff with everything else going on. And also there's a trust factor where the growers would like to have somebody else be able to see their daily extractions. There's concern if us as a public agency had access to their daily extractions. In fact, the AMI, which I'll go into a little bit, is 15-minute measurements. There's concern that it could be discoverable through a public records request, and that these are trade secrets. They don't want their competition knowing when they're applying water or how much water they're applying, at what times, or maybe it could signal when they're planning to bring the crop to market and somebody else can cut ahead of them and change the price. So we got this third-party exchange administrator, keep all that behind that curtain. So this cost to join, and I can't remember, but there's a fee, small percentage on every exchange that happens. Okay, advanced metering infrastructure, the AMI. This is, and I'll say it, this was a big selling point to our board, because this, with the AMI, we're able to get away from the self-reporting. We're able to get to much more accurate, timely data. We're allowed monthly totals as opposed to 6 times a year. Our groundwater sustainability plan, the modeling needs monthly extraction totals for the inputs into the model. And right now we're extrapolating out of the biannuals. So we're going to get a lot of information and a lot of accuracy out of the AMI. And the conversation I've been hearing among the growers is they all want this on their neighbor's property. They want their neighbors to have these cameras. So we got a grant essentially through the Nature Conservancy, a sub-grant through the Nature Conservancy. They won the grant from the Natural Resource Conservation Services, $800,000 to get AMI on all our active wells. And this, when I get to the lessons learned and the challenges, I'll speak to this a bit. Because not everybody wants it, and they don't want to be told what piece of equipment to put on their well, and I understand that this is a key component of infrastructure for their whole operation is their well and the pump and the distribution of that. And the last thing they want is somebody else to come in and put equipment on there and be messing around with it. Huge discussions with our board. Who's going to own this equipment? Is this is the agency going to own the meters and control that, or is it still going to be the growers? And it is going to be the growers. With the grant, they basically purchase the equipment and we rebate them almost full price. So to give a little background on what advanced metering infrastructure is, we've got sensors on the well meter, on the meter face actually, optical sensors. It's a camera. We just don't call it a camera. That actually reads the meter face, and not digital, the analog meter face, and then through the computer can convert that to a digital reading. But the picture of the meter face goes up through Wi-Fi to the data storage, and then we store it on our database. And that's a challenge we're dealing with right now, is we've got the one vendor through the grant, and that data is all handled great, but what do we do with the data from the other vendors? There's 3, 4, 5 different other vendors out there. And we need a way to get all that data into one spot, manageable, and in the same units. So it's part of the growing pains we're going through right now. So our water, I want to thank you. I didn't take a chance to thank you for inviting me here. I know we've been getting a lot of press about our water market. Some of it we pushed just to get the word out to our growers that this grant is available, these changes are happening. And our exchange administrator and the Nature Conservancy have been doing a lot to talk how well this water market is taking off. We did a pilot that ended July of last year. That was limited to 30 growers. We had 6, 8 apply. One of the challenges were you had to qualify, you had to have your meter had to be calibrated within the last 3 years, you had to be a good standing, no outstanding fees, and it was limited to one of the basins. We expanded it once we got the grant, but it's still limited to the Oxnard Basin. It's the largest one. But we had some delays getting the AMI contract in place, the delays to having them build it. We've got a couple hundred of them installed now. But I'll be honest, we haven't had a single trade yet. And I know the newspaper articles make it sound like this has been going great gangbusters and we're breaking all kinds of ground. And it's not insignificant what we've done to get to this point, but just all honesty, we've decided to extend phase 2, where our grant has phase 3 going agency-wide, and we're just not ready to do that. We need to do some real tests of the system and tests with growers and actual water to see if it works. So phase 2, we didn't start it right away because with Sigma and everything going on, we've got a lot of different balls in the air in the agency. We've got the new allocation system coming in. We've got the groundwater sustainability plan we're trying to develop. The allocation system, we've got adjudication lawsuits already coming across our desks. So what I should say, with the first pilots, our allocation system was pretty flexible. It allowed, depending on what crop you're growing and how many rotations you have, you're allowed more water. As long as you're using it efficiently, you're not going to pay surcharges. So grass, celery, they use a lot of water, but peppers, they don't use as much. So there's a different allocation for each one. But we learned they were just a little too generous. Almost every grower was using about close to 80% of what their total allocation was. So, and since it was flexible on what you grow, it's not a strong cap for cap and trade for the water market. So the first phase and the second phase had a whole separate allocation for those who joined the water market. So it was never even a fair test because it was limited to who could join. This next one, since we are planning to adopt a new allocation system starting January 1, we're going to start that January 1, and we have a lot of AMI in the field. We've got a lot of people signed up, and who knows what the weather will do, because in a dry year you think you might have all buyers, in a wet year you think you might have all sellers, but that's going to play into what happens. What's next? Oh, lessons learned. Okay, I've kind of touched on some of these already. Education and outreach, letting people know that this exists, has been very difficult. Our board meetings are, they're about as well attended as this, which seems surprising, very vocal, but that's a very limited group of growers who are paying attention and cities who are paying attention. There are a lot of lands out there that are held in trusts. You mail something to the owner, it goes to a lawyer in Illinois, and you don't know if it gets to the right person eventually. If you, the operators, the actual growers on site, they rotate, they lease land, so it's not the same land. They're not working with the same well year after year after year. There's a fair amount of consistency, but it's one of our challenges to get this information out to everybody who needs to hear it. The allocations I mentioned, that's huge because some people looked at the allocation they'd get under the water market, and it wouldn't be as much as they get without joining the water market because there were two different allocation systems. So that cut the legs out of a lot of people joining. And as I mentioned, the flexibility, obviously, if it was a hard cap and that's the only place they could go to get more water, that would be a stronger water market. And down the road, as we approach sustainable yield, extractions meeting sustainable yield in 20 years, there are going to be severe cutbacks everywhere. And if anybody, the rumor I'm hearing, the way it's put, if anybody has water to trade, they were given too much water. Their allocation was too high because everybody's going to be fallowing land, and it's going to be tough. We're eyeballing it right now. We're looking at close to a 40% reduction in pumping over the next 20 years. And I've heard this bottom bullet, pressure for agricultural production. There are packer shippers who would rather their growers pay surcharges, grow as much fruit and vegetables to put on the ship on their trucks, and that's where they make their profit. They don't want growers, and this is all rumors, but it's one of the pressures we're feeling. They don't want their growers saving water to sell on a market where they get that profit. They want the commission on what they sell through the company. So there's been some pressures there. On the AMI, this has been a big one. You can imagine, we got, 500 wells, 200 extra backup wells out there.
Remind me of your acronym.
Advanced Metering Infrastructure. It's a utility term for water utilities when, or PG&E when they put the smart meters on. It's essentially a smart meter. I should say back 2007, the agency got a grant to install AMI as AMR. It was radio as instead of internet, and we'd have to drive around everywhere to pick up the signal. They had a grant to do that, and they wouldn't go for it. The growers didn't want that much attention on their meters. Things have changed. The growers' opinion has evolved because they know the cutbacks that are coming. So the challenges we have are in compliance and enforcement. Meters are out of calibration. Our rule is every 3 years. Then they're not eligible for the grant. So that stalled quite a few who wanted it, but they had to get their meter calibrated. But there's only so many certified meter calibrators in the area, so it created a backlog. The company we decided to go with we went with only a single company for the grant. Everything sounded great up until the day we signed the contract, and then there was a 3-month production delay for the first 300 units. So we lost some time there. As you imagine, every wellhead, every meter is going to have a unique situation. They're solar driven or solar powered, and if the pump is next to eucalyptus trees or something, they can have completely different situations at everyone. So it's been a learning curve there, and even though the AMI units are, I think, $1,500 for the cheapest one, $2,500 for the most expensive. We're paying, the grant pretty much pays for it completely. It's not a big amount of money to some of these growers. And so we have a lot who say, yeah, it's great, I'm going to go someplace else. I'd rather not be, either it's the equipment, they don't trust, they don't like that style, they've already got systems in place, they want to go someplace else, or they just don't want government involved in their operations at all. So we got a grant in, let me see, it was actually December of last year where the incentive program was approved. And we also adopted an ordinance saying by December 31st, every active agricultural well with a meter has to have this AMI. And we've got 500 wells out there, and we've only had 300 apply for the incentives that we know of. So there's a few out there, they've either done their own thing or they're planning not to do anything, don't know. But we got to track them down. So that goes back to compliance and enforcement. It's going to be a huge effort here. I think that's it. No, yeah, that's it. So, got plenty of time for questions. Sorry. Go ahead.
In regard to your basin, the groundwater basin model, you've got 500 wells. Will the maximum take on each well be based on a groundwater sustainability model? So that when you set the cap for your pricing structure, will that be regionally different according to the geology underneath the well?
No, as it stands, no. We have, right now our allocations we're considering is going to be based on a base period of 10 years of 2004 to 2014. What was your water use there? Average that out. What's your average water use on that well? But because there are a lot of parcels out there that don't have a well, they've been getting water from somewhere else. We need to convert our allocation system from the wellhead to the land. So we're not stranding any lands without water out there. To answer your question, there are management areas because we've got saline intrusion area, we've got some pumping troughs, but we've been at this a long time in Ventura County, so there's a lot of infrastructure, pipelines to get water to these other areas. Straight off the Santa Clara River, water's being diverted from wastewater treatment plants, so the allocation system is going to be flat across those areas, regardless of their access to water or the geology beneath it. Wait, this next slide.
What, is this strictly just for ag, and all you deal with is ag, or what's the allocations for the municipalities and the towns that keep growing with unlimited growth when land is fallowed and then they put up some more houses?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, it's right now. What we're planning is both municipal, M&I, and agriculture are going to be on the same allocation system. There's going to be a big split. Ag gets 60%, municipalities get 40%. How they share that up between them is up to them. They need to decide. We're working on the ag portion right now. So M&I is going to be capped just like ag. They have ratepayers, and they also have access to state water. So they've got a different situation, but they are guarding their ratepayers. You know, they're fighting for groundwater because it's so much cheaper. You saw the numbers, $6 versus $1,400.
Where is your exact geographic location? You said the Oxnard area.
Let me back that up a bit. So that's all of Ventura County. Up where it says 313, that's the lower corner of San Luis Obispo County.
Okay.
And so Santa Barbara County is going off the map here. Down here, this orange blob is like City of Ventura is right here. This is Oxnard, Thousand Oaks, Simi Valley, Moore Park, Santa Paula, Fillmore, Piru. Does that help? Highway 1?
Yeah. The Fox,
101.
Fox Canyon.
Oh, is this. You can see it there. And we have some boundary problems because when these boundaries were drawn, we weren't paying attention to DWR because there was no sigma. There was no reason to pay attention to DWR. So we've got all these scraggling areas that we got to manage now too.
Basically, it would be like the valley there along 101.
Wherever it's flat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's us. Yeah.
So I feel like your presentation is two parts. So there's first the automation of reading meters, which I think, growers tend to have meters in this area because they have pressurized systems. So there's that part that you discussed, but then there's this part about the water market, so which is a very sensitive topic for the growers in our area here in this whole county. So can you talk about first the growers buy into this idea of the meters, and then the growers buy into this idea of the water market? Because to me, those are very separate.
Yeah,
Completely separate.
The water market came to us from the growers. There was a growers group that were looking for solutions to avoid paying surcharges. And they're the ones who worked to draft the rules and to make that happen. And to make that happen, they realized they needed to trust how much water the other growers were using. They want to make sure nobody's working around the system and selling them water that they're essentially stealing from the big pool. So they brought it to our board and got buy-in from our board. I think our board, not speaking for them, but I think they saw the advantage of having that metering system in the basin for a lot of reasons. For more accurate billing, when the price starts going up to a couple $100 an acre feet, I'm not saying anybody's stealing or cheating, but we once put up a map of parcels that were green and saying we haven't got a report from this person, and the growers just jumped on them. They know what's going on out there. So at $6 an acre feet, if we're seeing some of that going on at $400 an acre feet, it's going to be a lot, or acre foot. It's going to be the incentive to go around the meter is going to be much higher. So our board really wanted to clamp down on that. And so they saw the water market as a way to get those meters now. Sorry, he's had his hand up.
If your basin like Fox Canyon exceeds its perennial yield, can property owners still sell their water based on their historical use?
Yeah, it's 20 years from now. As a whole, if we are being managed unsustainably, if one grower decides to fallow their land, they shouldn't be singly penalized for what's happening in the entire basin. So We're not there yet, but I would.
Over the perennial yield, anything you take out is detrimental to your.
Right, right. There, I will say our board is. You can see it in their mind. There is a desire to protect that resource, and so when it comes to that decision, they will look at it from that way.
But you've been exceeding your perennial yield since what, 1983 or?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but we have 20 years under Sigma to ramp down to that point.
Yeah, the market trades, do they have a specified duration, and how does one exit one? Do they have a term that expires? Do they have?
Yes.
And so if you want to exit from it, you have to wait for the term to end, or?
All trades are within a single water year. Our water year is January to for agriculture, we're starting the new allocation system in January, so I think our water year is changing, but in the past it's been August 1st to July 31st. So all trades are within that year, and if you buy water and don't pump it, that's it. You don't get to use it next year.
Talk a little bit about how you, because the assigned allocations is a little bit where the devils of details tend to live.
Yeah.
And so how you kind of have approached that and how you're going to keep everybody happy. To the extent that, say, in this area, if someone was growing alfalfa for the last 10 years and has now switched to grapes, their historic water, I don't know, maybe somewhat synonymous to, say, having grown sod in the previous 10 years and then switching to vegetables or something like that.
And sod is a huge crop down in Oxnard Plain. And they are one of the major landowners and very engaged. But they do lease out some of their land to other growers.
To the extent that, like, I'm a vegetable grower and that guy's a vegetable grower, but that guy used to grow sod.
Yeah.
Is he sitting on a much bigger allocation than I am because of what his
you're
dad did or what happened in the past?
Drifting into water rights, which is what we're really trying to avoid in our decisions.
That would be fantastic, but how do you avoid it?
Yeah, exactly. So that's why we are setting up it based on historical use. And what they use it for in the future, we're not looking into that. So if their business model says, well, my water's being cut 60%, I'm not going to just grow 60% of my land with sod. I'm going to grow a different crop. That's a decision they can make.
This is probably just out of curiosity, but I picture a room with one farmer and 20 bureaucrats in it. I'm trying to figure out how this allocation system gets discussed and the problems get solved.
Right. It's more 5 bureaucrats and 200 farmers, but yeah, they're a very engaged group down there. We have been meeting with them twice a month for 2 years now to get to the point where we are. And not all of them are happy. Like I said, one of our basins is already a lawsuit for adjudication. More than likely, the other one will. But with Sigma, we have to keep marching forward. The adjudications can't stop our progress.
I want to go back to your allocation system. The law states, and you don't want to get into the law, but that a person has a beneficial right to use what he needs to use as long as he's beneficially using it. Doesn't have the right to beneficially pump it and trade it and sell it. So how do you get into this trading and selling when you're not using it on your land and you're transferring it to somebody else? Because you're not given a right for a certain amount of water. You're given the beneficial right to use the water.
That's one for our council, and they determined it was okay. So.
Yeah, on your carryover market, how do you propose to limit the extractions in subsequent years if you have a surplus built up or a carryover built up in order to avoid collapsing the whole basin at one time?
Right. The draft for carryover right now is 5% of your allocation, so it's not a large amount. It's just if you're at the end of your water year and you've got a crop you want to bring to market and you need that water now, for protecting that resource, if we allow you to borrow from next year, instead of just pump away and pay surcharges, if you borrow from next year and then pay it back, but your next year's allocation is reduced that much, it's actually better for the basin because less water will have been extracted.
But if you don't use your whole allocation, can you carry over that unused part to this year?
I don't think so. I think it's a 1 year only.
What, so you guys formed before Sigma. I mean, how did you get funded, and was it just all through grants to start this thing up? I mean, this seems like such a large undertaking.
Yeah, I was still in high school. Let's see. It was a state agency, so it took state legislative action to make it happen. So that's how it was formed. And then I think, the initial pump fees were $2 an acre feet or so. So it was not at all the agency it is today due to Sigma and due to the pressures. Even 4 years ago, the decisions and the rate of the meetings, they met 8 times a year, that board. And the board meetings would last 2 hours. Now we're meeting twice a month, more than twice a month, and the board meetings are 6 hours. It's an entirely different level of work and issues we're dealing with.
I just had a question about the critically overdrafted basins and how the allocation system is intended to correct that. I'm just sort of, I don't understand how you get from critically overdrafted to...
Yeah, I don't think I have a slide for that. But essentially, there's a single pool of water and a bunch of straws in it.
Right.
And the allocation is how much is each straw allowed. And right now we're saying total extractions, historical, and not just the Oxnard Basin, but all 4 of those, roughly 100,000 acre feet a year. And that's what they've been pumping for the last 10 years. Sustainable yield is going to be 60,000. Rough numbers, modeling's not finished. So everybody's going to get a 40% haircut over 20 years. And in 20 years, that's the cap. That's no more than 60,000 acre feet is allowed to be extracted.
Got it.
Yeah.
I'm curious in that context, so when you're in the pilot phasing, which sounds like it's focused on growers, would a full program be like zoned just for agriculture, or I guess you talked about bringing in municipal, so like how will this consider de minimis users and that kind of thing over time, or are they getting allocations?
So we've got, it might not show up there, it looks like roads, but there's 3 orange basins there. They're high priority. We can't trade water from one basin to another. So, and then the de minimis users, 2 acre feet per in a household for years is a lot of water, and that is just such a small amount when we're talking about 60,000 acre feet. So they're not even required to have a meter.
Okay. So they don't report, or you guys have made a decision to handle de minimis separate? We're debating these things.
Yeah, what's our rule? If it's a house but it's on 5 acres, then they would have, I think it's 5 acres producing something, and that gets a little fuzzy because our horses, does that count as they need it? So it's legal. Whatever we write, we got to read it in somebody else's eyes to understand it.
I have a question about the hardware. So what kind of meters are they, and what is the accuracy? Did you guys come up with like a set installation specification, because accuracy is affected by placement?
Yeah. So
the calibration,
right.
like you said.
Right.
And then when people want to use their own, and how long did it take to set up these 300 people?
Where are we? Oops, one more. So I should point out, that's a great question because it's not clear when we talk about advanced metering infrastructure, and it took a while to get our board to understand this. We're not talking about the actual meter that's on the wellhead. And you're right, it needs a straight run of 5 feet of pipe or so to make sure it's reading accuracy. They have to be calibrated every 3 years to plus or minus, I think 5% is our rules, but I think a lot of them are down to 3%. Our equipment that's through this grant for the water market, it's an optical sensor that just reads that meter face. So it just sits right on top of it. And then
And it can read the different styles. Yeah.
Right. Actually, we're finding some of the very, very new ones that it's a little LCD that only lights when you open it up, but we can't read those. There's not enough light in there. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, well, I'm just seeing how long did it take for this, if it were going to be used elsewhere, how long did it take to set up?
Oh,
that
so
kind of thing.
we, I should have the whole calendar here. We adopted the ordinance for AMI in February. We got the contract with the vendor we're using, and they, as I said, there was a little delay in production there. They started installing them. Well, before they started installing them, we had the grant application. We were taking applications from the growers, so we're building up a clientele for them to go out to. But the first ones didn't really get installed till July. And so they're cranking out 40 or 50 a month.
So right now there's how many?
Installed 175, and we've got 50, at least, no, 50, 60, no, more than that, like 100. So waiting in the wings that we have the applications for, and they just need to get to them. You know, I should have put it in the lessons learned. One of the big challenges was, I don't know if you experienced it up here, but early July, for a few weeks, we had a horrendous heat wave, screaming Santa Anas. The growers were just using all the water they could to save their crops. They didn't want to shut down their operations to have somebody stick one of these meters on. They just said, forget it, you know, go somewhere else, but nobody else was willing to do it for 2-3 weeks. So that also set us behind.
Now, in your program, you have, two elements in the path towards sustainability. One is augmentation through the trade. The second one is innovation through the smart meter program. Does your agency involve the growers also in the conservation portion of the path towards sustainability?
We haven't put direct pressure on them to buy new equipment, more water efficient. There is a grant that we are partnering with. Who is it? The not Ag Commission, the Farm Bureau, to provide that kind of equipment to growers. And I should point out, I totally missed this step on the AMI. It's not just for reading meters. There are significant advancements for growers through the AMI. They can hook up soil sensors at different depths to know how much water is in the root zone, so the water isn't being wasted going past it. They can have humidity, what's the relative humidity, temperature, wind, so they know the evapotranspiration of their plants. They can really dial in the amount of water they're using for maximum production without wasting it. So that's a huge advantage that our board wanted out in use in the plane. Okay.
Can you pop back your slide that had the pricing if they go over a certain amount?
What do you think, back?
I think it's ahead.
Is it ahead? There it is.
Ahead, yeah. Can you explain how you got to tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 pricing, if those were from supplemental sources, why they're different, kind of where the lines were drawn?
I don't. That's before my time. Sorry.
That's all right.
I just know that the first one is based on imported water.
And where did they import their water from?
Our water is through MET, essentially, Metropolitan Water. It's state water. Technically, the water right is Colorado River water, but there's no infrastructure to get that to us, so we get the state water, which is much better water.
So where if people do reach their charge rate, where does something go? Like,
Our board decided that's not for operations. We can't use that for anything of our day-to-day business. That's for special projects, studies. In fact, that money funded the very first phase of the water market. So that's how they use it.
What are you going to do about people who have all their land in orchard and you can't fallow an orchard? Are you working towards the 40% reduction by telling everybody, look to take out 40% of your trees? Or?
Right. No, that's a real good point. They are some of the most least water users, depending on their soils. If it's sandy, the water just goes right through. But there's a floor we're putting in the allocation that everybody's going to get, and it's up to debate. We haven't answered it yet. 1.5 acre feet per acre. So an orchard will still have enough water to sustain itself. And one of the basins is actually considering a separate pool for newcomers. If somebody buys land that has been fallow for years and they want to grow it, that there will be some water available because they have an overlying water right. So we need to be respectful of the water rights.
So where will that water come from?
Out of the whole pool. Everybody else takes a little less, so there's some left over for the newcomers.
So you fallow that much more ground so you can irrigate some other ground.
Some of that is happening, or I shouldn't say happening here. I've seen that in other areas where they rotate the growing and constantly fallow some portion.
You mentioned that you haven't actually had the trades yet, and there's a few reasons for that, just the way it's been structurally set up. But now that it's kind of coming together, more restrictions, are you talking to folks? Are there conversations started? Do you think there's going to be interest once it's fully in place?
Yeah, we're doing a test trade. The Nature Conservancy, who's our partner with this grant, they are actually a landowner up in the Santa Clara River Valley, and they lease that land to growers. So they are going to do some trades for sure. But we have talked to some of the other growers who are really we have some businesses in Ventura County who this $1,400 an acre feet is just a cost of doing business, and they grow tomatoes like nobody's. Well, like their own business, and they're making a ton of money per acre compared to everybody else. They're very interested in this because they stand to save thousands and thousands of dollars. So once it's in place, we're hoping we build it, they will come.
Did you guys build some kind of I've seen some basins where while you're testing out the program to see how it goes, part of the building trust is like having a sunset clause, like your board can opt out of a program at a certain point if it's not going well, or do you guys have any kind of end date on that?
I'm shaking my head because we haven't got to that point yet. Right now, the pilots that we are doing have only been for 1 year at a time, so they automatically end.
How many acres are in your basin?
I should know this. I should know this. Give me a sec.
100,000 acre feet per year.
Yeah, I
the
want to say
ag guys are getting 60%.
It's I want to say 50,000, 40,000.
These are all year operations, aren't they? Multi-cropping.
Well, there are a lot of orchards, a lot of citrus, avocado, a lot of multi-cropping, and sod. Sod's big, and the tomatoes, hothouse tomatoes. Like I said, that one grower makes 5 times as much per acre than anybody else with his tomatoes.
All right, any last questions?
You mentioned something about partnership with Farm Bureau. What was that all about?
I can't remember who the grant came from, but the county and Farm Bureau got a grant together for, we call it the Ag Efficiency Grant, and it's to provide drip tape or other efficient ways of irrigating agricultural lands to get them the equipment they need.
So the county Farm Bureau?
Yes, yeah, Ventura County Farm Bureau. Oh, hey.
Thanks for coming out and giving this presentation. I think we all found it informative. I just have a question. How are you going to determine that this water market is helping balance the basin?
We've had that question in different ways. Is the water market going to take any water that's not pumped and be sure it's pumped and not be protective of the basin? Because anything that's not pumped, is that going to just automatically go to the market and make sure it's a race to the bottom? It's really in the cap and trade. And if that cap is at the right place, it would be sustainable. And then the other half of that is providing value to that water that's not pumped above $6 an acre feet, say. There's more incentive for a grower to invest in equipment like soil sensors, humidity, and make sure their operations are as efficient as possible.
So what's the discussion around what is the good cap that's sustainable? How are you setting that?
That's the groundwater sustainability plan and the modeling and the $1 million effort that we've got to adopt next year.
So you don't know. The answer is you don't know.
Well, things are pointing at 60,000, but that's a rough number. And that's
okay, well, let's just say 60,000.
Yeah.
How does that get back to your farmers?
I'm sorry.
So how do you measure in their water market and their cap?
That's the allocation. 60,000 is the size of the pool. The
right.
allocation
I understand
is the size
that.
of
I
each
understand the
slice.
math. The math is
Okay.
easy. But the reality, and back to your allocations, and see, that's where all those devilly details. That's what I'm curious about. How are you doing with the devilly details?
Are you planning for a scheduled reduction in the caps or
right.
allowances?
Yeah, it's a yearly reduction until we get down there. No, decisions were made. We were thinking GSP, the groundwater sustainability plan, needs to be updated every 5 years. Do we want to just update that and drop everybody down to that new level, or just every year predictable reduction? And that's what the growers preferred.
Anybody who hasn't had a chance? You want to close this out, Greg, and then we'll
Sure.
quick question.
A few years ago, I can't remember if it was 14 or 15, Dr. Candy came and gave a presentation right before we were voting on a water district plan that was called AB 2453. And that's when we found out that for 35 years you've been overdrafted 20 to 30,000 acre feet. And with all added up, you were overdrafted 1 million acre feet. And I was curious, they couldn't answer, how do you still have water if you're 1 million acre feet overdrawn? And there was one person that was a large nursery that was paying $830,000 a year in fines. They were making so much more money than what the fines were. So how do you control protecting the basin if somebody has an unlimited amount of water, or an unlimited amount of money to keep paying for water that you're supposedly supposed to be protecting the basin?
But homeowners do something.
Sorry, just got distracted there.
Yeah.
But to answer your first question, 1 million acre feet pumped out. How do we still have water? It's the ocean. Ocean has been coming in, and it's salty water. It's wet water though, and so that's a good chunk of it. The Ventura River, Santa Clara River is a huge watershed for Southern California. There's an organization or district, United Water Conservation District, actually has infrastructure on the Santa Clara River to shunt off high flows into a lot of spreading grounds, and they recharge. Without them, it would have been gone. It would have collapsed. The whole basin would have fallen into the sea.
Well, if it's being recharged, then how come that recharge isn't being shown where you're not as overdrawn?
It's a balance. They've been working that plane. And I should point out also the pressures on the growers here. Much like San Luis Obispo, we have very strong growth laws. We have SOAR initiative, Save Our Open Space and Agriculture. So a lot of that farmland can't just they can't just throw up their hands, I'm done, I'm going to sell it to a developer. So maintaining functional agriculture in Ventura County is really key to maintaining that quality of life that Ventura County wants.
All right. Good?
Yeah, I'm
all
done.
right. Hey, thank you so much. We said, we'll have you in and out in half an hour so you can get back. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to our visitors who came to enjoy and learn from this awesome presentation. And thank you so much, Arnie. Now, we have your slides. Is it all right if we distribute, or do you want to look them over?
Do you mind if I send you a PDF?
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. So if folks are interested in PDF, that would be great. Okay. Yeah. No, that's better. So that's all we want to do anyway. So we do have to finish the meeting, but I actually have to run across the street. So Linda is going to step in as our vice chair to go on to our next item, and I will see you all next month. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Hi, everybody. I thought that was a phenomenally interesting presentation, so thank you all for your great questions as well. We have a couple more items on the agenda, and the next item is the ad hoc subcommittee on water conservation, and Linda Chipping is the chair of that subcommittee. Linda, do you want to come forward and make a report?
Sure. In your packet was a memo that was put together for our last subcommittee report, and we met on October 31st. Before we did that, Andy Pease and I had gone to a lab to do some outreach with them, and we discussed the ag-specific conservation measures that you see that are listed on that first page. we ran out of time. We did a lot of discussion about them, but we ran out of time to really ask. The big question was, would they be willing to work with us on any of those particular items? And so John Pierre Wolf, who is the chair of ALAB, has indicated to me that he will pursue that at their next meeting so that we can find out from ALAB which ones they think they might be able to work with WRAC in order to pursue some agricultural conservation practices. The response from most of the people in ALAB was that they were already doing very good water conservation and have measures, and their irrigation efficiencies are quite good. And I don't doubt that, because that group of people that is in ALAB are at the top of their game. The important thing for us and for our outreach with agriculture are those people who are probably new to agriculture in this county or have not had much experience or are smaller and don't necessarily work with other agriculturalists, that there may be an opportunity to outreach to them. Then at our October 31st meeting, we were joined by Michael Borman, who is let me see if I've got this right now, the San Luis Obispo City Water Resource Program Manager. And it was very helpful because he shared with us a number of concepts and ideas about water, and especially in urban use. Concepts such as conservation measurement versus curtailment. Conservation being having a low impact on the customer versus a curtailment of certain water uses, which go into place over a certain amount of time. And you sort of want to avoid those, because once curtailment ends, then use rises again. So we're looking at some of the things that we have on that list to see how they fall in terms of modifying, make sure that they're not curtailment types of issues. Another one was his discussion with us about water audits, and we will continue that discussion with him. Another was, and it was outlined on that list that's on the first page, are landscaping education for landscaping businesses, commercial landscaping businesses. There appears that we have not discussed that a lot in the group until that day, and the fact that there is a need to reach out a little bit more to commercial landscapers. We have to learn how to empower homeowners to keep their landscapes alive. There are often changes when there is ownership changes with houses, and what have been good conservation measures with previous owners may not be carried over because the new purchasers aren't aware of what actually has been installed or what needs to be done to take care of it. The other thing that is not on that list that we should have put was our discussion in one of our previous WRAC presentations, that when new homes are developed in San Luis Obispo County, they need to get a permit for the landscaping. And one of the loopholes is that if they state when they apply for their building permits that they're not putting in landscaping, they don't have to meet any of the conservation measures that have been established by the state or the county. And so we feel that that loophole locally needs to be closed, that there are other places in the state where people have figured out how to close those, and we're hoping that we might be able to pinpoint how that might happen here, so that when new houses are built, water conservation measures in their landscaping will go in and then become a part of the house. At the very top of that particular of the information from our last meeting, the second set of bulletin items has three categories where most of those measures that we have considered fall. One of them is to make the public and WRAC aware of additional measures. And another one is to look at WRAC feedback and what you think of that list, as well as the potential to address some of those items in having speakers come to WRAC and be guest speakers and to present information on some of those items, as well as other information that we may not know. I think one of the examples of that was Mr. Anselm just doing that presentation for it, which I hope that you found that useful. It's, the idea behind that is we're not promoting or pushing water markets. What we're doing is trying to provide you with information about what's going on in other parts of the state, as well as there are lots of water markets out there, and water markets often have negative connotations to them. But the point is, if you look at it, this one's different in terms of where it's located and its focus. And there's some similarities and a lot of differences between Ventura County and here. But the point is to not adopt that program, but to look at the program and think about, as you go down the road with a lot of the various Sigma basins that are developing plans, how they are going to meet their sustainability, and if there's a possibility or using their collective brain power, see some adaptations about aspects of these programs that might work in their areas. It's to help them get down the road a little bit faster. Rather than kick the can down the road, see if they can get down the road a little bit faster and save it. And that's it for right now.
Great. Thank you, Linda.
We intend to have probably 2 more subcommittee meetings, and we'll wrap it up.
Good. I think there's some questions. Do you want to take questions? And
Tim?
Linda, I think great job, but not only that, I would say that presentation of you guys were behind that, incredible. Really, really fantastic, I thought. But I did want to mention, on your list, you got urban conservation measures, you got ag-specific conservation. It seems like those first 4 under ag could be under the urban component as well. Because I think there's some value in trying to showcase development that is doing it the right way.
Thank you.
So to speak.
Nice suggestion.
a couple questions over here.
Eric?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm intrigued by urban conservation recommendation number 9, essentially changing the trigger point or the set point on the RMS system.
Yes.
I presume that would now level of 3 needs to not only be designated but certified to trigger conservation measures, as I understand it. And so, would we then be asking? Would we want to formally recommend that the board of supervisors, flood control, etc., essentially create a system of triggers at RMS2? And if so, do we want to do it in advance of this year's RMS reports and findings? In other words, should this be something that gets on an agenda? And then an additional question, is there something corollary that we can do in areas of fractured rock that are not looked at by the RMS system?
I'm not in a position to answer the question yet, but we'll take it back to the committee.
It's kind of a bigger question for us too, depending on the timeline of the next RMS cycle, because it seems like a very promising idea.
And going up to the potential water conservation measures, will it fall under the recommendations that we would make, or are they opportunities that need to be further developed? And that's one of the things that we'll talk about in our meeting. Lisa? I'm sorry, Sarah.
I was called Megan.
I'm sorry.
Sarah. With an H. Okay, so for agricultural and landscape, I don't know, maybe this is buried in there, but I think the education component is missing. The Irrigation Training and Research Center has short courses that they offer twice a year to growers and people in the industry. And I mean, maybe there's some money that can be offered to help people go to these courses that maybe want to improve their system. But they're like 1 or 2 day classes. They teach you about distribution uniformity, which I think is missing here. I think irrigation efficiency is important, but it's about improving yields for farmers. So there's that distribution uniformity that's kind of essential for that. But, so I think the education component is important.
David?
Well, there's another aspect of the educational component, and that is the sort of thing that we've seen today. Some of you may take the Maven's list on water stuff going on. And he had yesterday or today an article which you should all read. It's from Agricultural and Resource Economics, which comes from the Giannini Foundation for Agricultural Economics, University of California. It's an article called Climate Change in California's Water Supply, How Can We Adapt? It's only a 3 or 4 pager, but it shows, using another series of models, what our county is to expect under global warming scenarios. Under normal scenarios, we are in what's a high drought effect scenario. With the global warming models, even conservative, we are an extreme by 2050. I think it's utterly important that this committee make that kind of knowledge available, because that's going to produce the political constituency to do something. If every farmer knew that this was coming down the pike, and you could have access to scientific articles and other information that led them to not have any doubt this is coming down the pike, then I think this would be an important role for the committee to disseminate that information. The article is, the organization is the Giannini, the Giannini Foundation for Agricultural Economics at the University of California. They have a journal called Agricultural and Resource Economics. This is volume 22, number 1, so that will get it to you. Okay. 22, number 1, Climate Change in California Water Supply, How Can We Adapt? But this is one of many things that can be gathered.
Can you validate parking? Wait a minute. Sorry.
Well, one more thing, if you don't subscribe to the Maven's list, just go into Google and do Maven's list. He has a daily bulletin of all the water stuff that's going on in California. It parallels the DWR one, which some of you must take. There are 2 of them that come out usually every day. There's a bunch of stuff. All water news and science in California. So it's well worth going.
Any other questions for Linda? Any other comments?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm wondering if you had an opportunity to speak at all with Bill Ostrander. He has some really amazing techniques that he can talk about in terms of conserving water in ag, mostly in ranching.
I know the subcommittee has not talked to him specifically on that issue, but we can add that to the list of potential options, or things that we might consider. I did want to just also, since I don't see any other hands raised at the moment, and Linda's in the back, see if any other members of the subcommittee had anything they would like to add to the discussion. So, no. Okay. Linda, anything else?
I just wanted to mention that the diagram, the flow chart that was at the back, was taken from, and it's cited from California Agriculture. And the reason it's included is because it talks about various conservation measures. And I wanted you to recognize that we chose one area because of the water, and that was a reduction of crop-applied water demand. And down at the bottom is irrigation efficiencies. And then over on the increased supply side, the one we decided to approach was the groundwater recharge and the talk about dedicated recharge basins and the on-farm recharge. And that's one of the areas where we probably need to do, to have some more discussion, because a number of issues were raised when we were at A-Lab about various permits that are needed for various types of basins. And so it will be good if we can bring somebody in who can talk to us about state and county permitting for recharge basins or any type of basin.
That's it. I was just going to say, as a member of the subcommittee, Linda's just been absolutely phenomenal, and I just want to say how much I think on my behalf, and I hope on behalf of all of you, how much we really appreciate the amazing work that she's been doing to create this list and to help us begin to identify speakers and other resources that I think will enhance all of our knowledge on the issues that we're here about. So thank you very much. So just as we close, Linda, when is the next subcommittee meeting?
You know, we went over time last time and we didn't do it, and I talked to Andy earlier, and as soon as this meeting's over with WRAC's going to check with all of you and see.
I mean, I would say that, anyone who wants to join or participate in the work of the subcommittee, which is kind of where we're getting a little bit more nitty-gritty stuff, anybody would be welcome to participate. So maybe there's a way that Ray could just send a notice out that says when we're going to be meeting as a subcommittee next, and we'll deal with the Brown Act issues, which I can't imagine would ever be an issue, but if they are, we'll send someone home. And okay, so thank you. The next item is the future agenda items, and if you turn toward the end of the agenda, page 17, there's a list of potential items for future discussion. Eric.
Yeah, one issue that may be timely, at least one member of the Board of Supervisors has been lobbying at various levels, I don't know how effectively, for funding for some, perhaps it's for study, perhaps it's for implementation, relative to Salinas Dam expansion. At the last time it was considered, it was actually the San Luis Obispo City project that was very much opposed by a lot of people in the North County. But now that it seems to be a county endeavor to seek funding for it, I think it would be good to have some kind of a study session with Public Works and their understanding of whose project it would be, whom it would benefit, how would it be, how would the dam safety issues be resolved, who would own it, and essentially who would be the lead agency, what are the current thoughts on it? In other words, if money is being sought for something by the county when it had been a city project, will the live stream agreement be renegotiated? A lot of questions that I think if there's county action to move forward with something like this, it would be good to know what the county's understanding of it is.
We will add that to the list and discuss that with staff and see if it can go anywhere. Any other thoughts about other topics that you think that might be of interest to the group as a whole, or certainly are relevant to our discussion here on behalf of, again, the Board of Supervisors, information that we would take back to them? David.
The decommissioning of Diablo is going on, and several meetings the idea of doing something with their desal has been brought up. I was wondering whether that shouldn't be an issue to be discussed.
Just out of curiosity, since I'm relatively new here, about a year now, has there ever been a discussion on desal before this committee, or been any real careful vetting?
Not lately. Yeah, we had
presentations. How long ago would that have been? Or is it worth it to? Is that something that the group would be interested in having come back?
I think the status of the Diablo Canyon thing is kind of different from that. Yeah, I think we should have somebody come in and talk to us.
The fate of the desal has been put up as one of the items to be considered in the decommissioning.
Great.
I'm not sure who that would be.
Well, there's this other task force that's having monthly meetings relative to just different aspects of the decommissioning, and I don't know if someone on that task force is specializing on that issue.
David,
It's
It's appropriate for your future items list. I'll just say that.
Good. And you'd be able to help us get in contact with the right folks,
Yes.
right? Good. Okay, that sounds pretty interesting. Any other ideas for topics for future agendas? Okay, that concludes item number 7 and brings us to the public comment section. I think we've been very free here about having members and non-members participate very openly and fully, so I'm guessing there's probably nothing that anyone needs to add. There's Eric. Okay, Eric.
Because of various changes in who's representing what jurisdiction, I probably won't be able to name them all, but I would love to thank all of the people who have been part of the WRAC and who may not be official parts of the WRAC going forward for their participation. And of course, we always welcome participation by members of the public. The highest office in the country is citizen. And so even if the same folks come back as citizens, they will be very welcome.
Thank you for that comment, and I hope everyone feels respected and appreciated for the work you do here. And with that, we are now adjourned. It is 3:15, and thank you all. Have a great day.